All right, so hello and welcome to this afternoon's session called Taking Second Chances in the Justice System. I feel very lucky today to be able to share some inspiring stories of two amazing nonprofit organizations who are making big waves in their local communities as well as across the state of California. But before we get to the main event, let me just quickly introduce myself. So my name is Andrea Stevenson, and I'm the Partnerships Coordinator here at Clio. My main role at Clio is I manage Clio's Academic Access Program, which provides law schools, legal programs, and postgraduate incubators the opportunity to use Clio in a classroom, clinical, or postgraduate setting, completely free of charge. Now, let's get to the best part. Let's meet our panel. So first off, we have Sonja Tonnesen, the Deputy Director of Program and Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, well, that is quite the title, at an organization called Rutten Rebound. Sonja, would you like to give us a short intro of yourself and a little bit about Rutten Rebound?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sonja, and I work at a nonprofit based in Oakland, California, and we work across the state of California and are slowly starting to do work nationally as well. We are a reentry legal resource hub. So what that means is that our goal is to provide legal expertise on the barriers that people experience post-prison and jail. So after someone is done serving their time, there's a lot of collateral consequences because of having a criminal record. So we help provide legal resources, advice, and support to people who are making that transition back to the community, as well as to service providers who support them.
Amazing, thank you. So next I'd like to introduce the duo right here. We have Justin Brooks and Michael Semanchik from the California Innocence Project. Thank you both for being here. Justin, as the director and co-founder of the Innocence Project, can you explain a little bit about what you do and your main goals with it?
Sure. We are basically a law firm within a law school, and we have three missions: getting innocent people out of prison, training law students to be great lawyers by training them in a clinical setting, working on real cases, and doing law reform in California to decrease the number of wrongful convictions. Over the past 18 years, we've freed 27 innocent people from prison. We have trained, thank you.
Woo, exactly.
We've trained hundreds of law students, and we have written a number of laws in our office that have become law in the state of California. We've in fact had 3 laws in the past 18 months that were signed into law that generated from our work in our office.
Awesome, thank you so much. There we go. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to hear some more from our panelists today. And Sonja, let's start with you. So how did your program come to be? What made Rutten Rebound what it is today?
Yeah, so the program started 4 years ago in 2013, and really from seeing through the legal work that was being done in the criminal defense side, that there wasn't the same kind of support for people post-release. And I'm sure my co-presenters can speak to what people come home to even after they've been exonerated. It's really nothing. Most people coming out of prison get $200 and a bus pass, and that's it. And sometimes that's it, and they may even be back sooner than later because there's so many rules they then have to follow in the community, and for any of us, it would be hard to follow all of those. So again, it was really out of this belief that if people have served their time, they deserve the opportunity to really come back and have a fresh start. But the law itself was creating the barriers. So there's all sorts of discrimination that happens that's illegal, but a lot of the discrimination against people with records is completely legal. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're really trying to work against, and it's impacting thousands of people. So that's why we developed as a resource hub, not taking on court cases, but really developing large-scale legal advice so that anyone across the state can contact us. We do trainings throughout California for organizations that are on the ground, grassroots organizations, government agencies that are interacting with folks. And we also run the only legal hotline in the entire country that people can call every Friday with questions about criminal records to get advice and support and referrals.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, amazing. And Mike, from my understanding, the California Innocence Project wasn't the first Innocence Project created across the country, but when did you guys discover that there was a huge need in California?
Yeah, so we were the 4th Innocence Project to start in the United States, and we formed in 1999. The first Innocence organization actually started in the 80s, It's an organization called Centurion Ministries out of New Jersey. And when they got started, it was kind of, nobody really knew how big the problem was. As DNA testing sort of evolved, it suddenly became apparent that this was a massive problem. And so since 1989, there's been over 2,000 exonerations just in the United States alone that we've documented. And so it's pretty clear to us now, I think at this point, and I think the rest of the country, we're on average, we're getting 3 to 4 people out a week. So it's almost every other day. If you're sitting at your computer, you can actually find an exoneration that happened somewhere in the United States. What's crazy, I think, to us that are in this work is we think that we're right now just at the tip of the iceberg, that the problem is much more insane than what we've already seen. So I think one estimate thinks that there's as many as 10% of the people that are in prison are in fact innocent, and we have 2 million people incarcerated in the United States. So
it's crazy to think that. Justin, as the director and actually co-founder of the CIP, what brings you the biggest sense of accomplishment about the work that you do? I mean, we just talked about in the hallway how Justin can't retire until his next case is out of prison, and there's a huge sense of buy-in. When are the times that you feel most accomplished?
Well, I mean, it's those moments, when you're walking a person out of prison, and fortunately, I've had enough of them to motivate me towards the next one. And Mike, by the way, made that video. He just filmed the guy walking out, and then with every one of our clients, we say, anywhere you want to go to dinner, we'll take you, because there's nothing better than having that first meal with someone when they get out of prison. And Mike said, I've been seeing these Carl's Jr. ads for years, and that just looks awesome. So we said, we can definitely afford to take you to Carl's Jr. And it's amazing. Mike threw that video up on YouTube, and it now has more than 7 million views around the world. And, it's something that we do every day that seemed just another experience with a guy, but it really touched people in a way to see that. And what's even worse in our work, our guys don't even get the $200. We actually initiated legislation last year so that our guys that get exonerated get the same amount of money that guilty people get when they're released from prison. But since we kind of come in and pull them out of the system, they don't know what to do with them. So they don't get to go to halfway houses, they don't get any employment help, they don't get help getting a driver's license, they don't get the assistance that all the other inmates being released from prison get, which is pretty terrible, which require your organization, but we don't even get the terrible services for ours. And the irony of that is just crazy.
Absolutely. Mike, what are the biggest struggles that you see in the justice system from the point of view of wrongful conviction and then a reentry standpoint?
We rely on forensic science. We look at forensic science as this gold standard, that anything that a scientist or an expert will get up on the stand and testify to, it must be the truth. And we've been trying to overcome a lot of the practices within forensic science to reveal these wrongful convictions. For instance, bite mark evidence, we now know, is junk science. And just in the last decade, or a little over a decade, there's been 23 people that have walked out of prison that were convicted because of bite mark evidence. Arson science has been under attack now for 2 decades. Shaken baby syndrome is now we're starting to see a shift where the doctors are changing their position on whether or not shaking can actually cause an infant to die, or whether it's actually due to a shortfall. So forensic science has been a huge thing that it's difficult for us as lawyers to dig into this. We're not scientists. I have a couple of science classes from college and a couple of science classes in high school. I didn't go to college. I didn't go get a PhD in science. And we have to litigate those issues, and we're going up against people that have spent, sometimes 6, 8, 10 years perfecting and learning about their field. So I'd say that's one of the hardest challenges. I think internally the hardest challenge within our office, though, is when we find a case, or we find cases like this all the time, where you think or that a person is innocent, but our system isn't set up to allow us to get them out. And we know that that person's probably going to die in prison, an innocent person is going to die in prison. So.
Well, I'd also be remiss as a director of a nonprofit if I didn't mention that our biggest challenge is raising money.
That too.
We do bake sales, we do dodgeball tournaments, we do all kinds of things to scrape together money to do these kinds of cases and go up against the US government, and go up against the state of California with a hodgepodge group of law students and fundraising we've done. So go to CaliforniaInnocenceProject.org, check out our website, and we would love to receive your donations.
There you go. Sonja, what do you think? I mean, you're coming from the opposite spectrum. What do you see as the biggest struggle, above and beyond the things that we could assume, like lack of education around the legal system, not sure what to do? Where do you guys get stuck the most?
You mean for the people we're serving, or for as an organization?
Yeah, I guess as an organization, and kind of the barrier between you and the people that you're serving.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would echo on one side is that we are actually going up against so many laws that don't make sense. And even though the hearts and minds of the public are changing about what would public safety look like, what would a restorative system look like, what would rehabilitation look like, that we've had empty promises for a long time from politicians where saying, I'm going to be tough on crime used to get you into office, and there's a change in tone from both sides of the aisle. And so still, though, we have the remainder of those policies. So over 40 years, as our prison population exploded in this country, being the largest incarcerator in the world, and our state, California, definitely one of the worst in the country. At that same time period, laws were passing to education, to get loans, to get insurance, to get public benefits, to get a job, to be licensed, right? Licensed as an attorney. All these laws were passing that said no felony, no misdemeanor, nothing having to do with a serious crime, a violent crime. Well, every single state defines that differently, but these little codes and sections popped up over that 40 years to create a world where people with records are now second-class citizens under the law. And so that's what we're fighting against a lot, which is that we can't just say, let's make sentencing reform happen. When we're trying to give people real opportunity in reentry, we have to go to all those laws and change them and convince people on why that's not making the community safer, to keep people from accessing jobs or from housing or education and reentry. And then as an organization, I'll just add, definitely funding is a huge issue. Again, I think humanizing people who've been impacted by the system is a big first step. That's why people react to these videos and get goosebumps, because for a lot of folks, they've never been in prison. I think if everyone went to prison and talked to folks in prison, our minds would be changed. The world would look different in this country, because we'd be humanizing people and the children and the spouses and partners they leave behind. And another piece of it for us is actually the tech piece, which I think is really relevant to the conference, which is that it's very hard for people in prison to contact the outside world. There's been physical walls, but there's been virtual walls too, where people don't get access to internet, or it's very, 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 very limited if there's anything at all. So we have folks coming out of prison after 20 years who don't know how to use a cell phone, don't know how to use the internet, have never looked for a job online. How would you get by without the internet these days, or using your mobile technology? And for us as lawyers trying to get information inside, there's no special phone system for us. We're expected to go in person. In California, we have 36 prisons. It might be an 8-hour drive from Oakland for me to get to a prison where I'm trying to support someone. How are lawyers supposed to actually interact with their clients? So we've created a lot of legal resources, but they have to be in book form. And so we have a very difficult task as an organization to turn legal resources both into a book and into online searchable, search bar friendly products. And we definitely need more tech people, because as lawyers, we're not trained that way. So we need more tech and software people to help us figure out how to create legal products that serve our community, which is people impacted by the system.
Amazing. She actually read my mind with the tech piece. But all lawyers love a good book, right? We actually often try to make everything cloud-based solution, and people always call me saying, can I have a PDF of that? No. So last question before we open it up to the audience. So if members of our audience or members of your community are super interested on this topic, how do they get involved? Go ahead, Justin.
For us, you can go to our website, californiainnocenceproject.org, and we have not only there opportunities to donate, but also opportunities to volunteer for our organization. And we have all kinds of different types of volunteers. We've organized, our whole thing runs on volunteer. It'd be impossible for our organization to run without it. We review more than 2,000 cases a year. And we have a very small staff. And the way we do that is we have a system that Clio tremendously assists us with. Some of our Innocence projects around the country have actually used Word docs to organize their cases, and it's just absolute insanity. Because, first of all, for example, co-defendants contact us. And if we take a look at a co-defendant's file, now we have to dump our client. And if we don't have a system set up where we can do a co-defendant search, then we're in deep trouble right away. So we've set up a really great system for reviewing and analyzing cases, and we utilize volunteers from high school students to lawyers to experts in forensic science to investigators. And it's very, very structured and organized, and it's something people can help out remotely, or if they're in California, or if you can't do that, you can certainly donate. And I hate to do this, but I have 30 seconds left, so I'm going to turn this over to Mike Semanchik and have to leave you to catch a plane to go get more innocent people out of prison. But thank you very much.
Leaving in style. Thank you so much, Justin. All right, Sonja, let's turn it over to you. How can people get involved? And then what we'll do is we'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, so I have a few asks. Definitely one is that we also identify a lot of cases that we could use pro bono support. So if you work with a firm that takes on pro bono cases, we work very hard as an organization to create and manage and provide technical assistance so that lawyers who want to get involved in our work can as pro bono. And so that includes issues like parole and probation violations is a huge place we've been able to advocate to help people out. We had a client who had actually gone to a museum on a prison ground with his wife, and he was formerly incarcerated. Amazing guy. He actually went to prison because of a crime relating to his abusive father. So he was in a domestic violent home, went to prison for 25 years actually for killing his abusive father. And when he was coming out, went to community college. He was going to classes to talk to young kids about domestic violence and why it's important to seek help and get counselors, and if you're not listened to keep going on. And so he went and visited this museum with his wife, really just in interest, but it was on prison grounds. And in California, under the law, it's a felony if you've ever been an inmate in a California state prison to ever go back on prison grounds without the approval of the warden, which is like the mayor of a city, right? That's the president, the head of that individual prison. So by law, he had committed a felony by going to a museum, even though he didn't go through the gate or anything. And that was a place where our organization could advocate. But we need pro bono attorneys to help take on those cases, right? To actually say, wait, this isn't serving a larger legislative interest of rehabilitation or public safety. This isn't the kind of person we want going back to prison, and to support us on those cases. So one is definitely pro bono support. Two is definitely support with your donations. We're a very small organization. We started with a budget of $50,000. Luckily, it's gotten bigger over the last 4 years, and we now have a staff of 11 people. But we need support to do more of this work. We have, as the video said, hundreds of thousands of people coming home, and we're the only reentry legal organization like this in the country. So we need help through funding support, even if that means $15 a month through our website. And then the third piece, which I mentioned, is the tech support. We would love the coders in the room, the software people in the room, to help us out. We actually have our Roadmap to Reentry Legal Guide. It's a 1,200-page legal resource that we have in print form right now. We've shipped out 36,000 of those guidebooks to people for free in prison because they don't have access otherwise to information about their legal rights. So that covers all those topics you saw in the video. We want that to be online and searchable. So if someone went on the internet, they could type in California, can I vote if I have a felony? And the answer would pop up. So that answer's in a book right now, but we want it searchable online. So we've been working just pro bono with one guy from Code for America who, bless his heart, after work, comes and helps to build our site out on GitHub. But we would love more people to help us build tools like that are online so that our materials can be accessible both in print and in a modern form. So those are the three ways I would say you can all really get involved, and hopefully one or the other speaks to you.
Amazing. Well, thank you both for
Yeah.
your time. I know we are running a little bit tight on time, but I think what we'll do, we are going to, do we have time to take some questions? Yeah, let's take just a few, and then what I was going to say is we can we'll stick around just after the session for a few minutes if anyone has any additional questions. But
Hi. So in Georgia, we have an Innocence Project. My husband's involved with that group. But I'm wondering, with the Rutten Rebound, like, you're only in California, but it seems like your resource, even though it's California specific, could really help another state do the same thing. Do you have any ideas for expanding into other states?
Yeah.
How would that work in another state? Could we use some of your resources if we wanted to do something similar, maybe with our Innocence Project, to create something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So we're very much interested in pursuing expansion. We're trying to do that in a really thoughtful way, but the need is definitely there. We've had partners in a lot of different states saying, we need this resource, we need that reentry legal hotline, we need legal know your rights information for people once they get out, post-conviction, right, who've served their time. And so we are actually this fall hiring someone in the process now, if you know anyone in the Bay Area who wants to apply. We're currently hiring for a national programs development person to actually make those relationships in new regions and look at what a state initiative would look like in some new states. So yeah, if you're interested and you think there's the need and the partnerships available to make that happen, I'd love to stay connected. And then in terms of the actual resource, yeah, so in creating the California Roadmap to Reentry Guide, we researched federal law too. So there are sections on federal probation and, about the federal exclusions for food benefits and when California opted out of that. So there's actually a really strong template of what the federal collateral consequences are for people with records that could be easily adapted, I would think, in a 6-month time period with state legal experts out of our office. So that's something we're really interested in pursuing with the right partners and where the need and support is there.
awesome, thank you.
Yes.
Raphael, we
Stay
have
connected.
a really quick
I'll
question.
make it very quick. I'm a civil rights attorney in Columbus, Ohio, and I primarily practice in protected class discrimination, and I come across the very individuals that you guys are serving on a regular basis. To what extent do you guys work with attorneys like me beyond either helping them get out of prison or once you've kind of helped them set up? Do you guys, collaborate, nationally or with lawyers? And if not, how can we help in that sense?
Very thought.
Yeah. Go.
So we have had a number of clients that have gone on to file 1983 claims against the government, and as you know, and I don't know if everybody in this room knows, but it's very difficult to prove up a case against the government. We do have civil firms that specialize in that. Lovey and Lovey in Chicago is one, and they've taken a lot of the cases. If you have a prosecutor that hides evidence of innocence in any of your cases, that prosecutor is immune. So there is no claim there. That's it. So they can hold that, lock it in a safe for 30 years, and then open it and hand it to you, and it doesn't matter. So that's something that I think everybody needs to know, that we need to overcome in this country. Cops or police officers have qualified immunity. So if it's basically within the scope of their work, then they're covered and there's no suit there. So we file compensation claims in California for our clients. We do that in-house. We don't take a dime from them. The wrongfully convicted in California are supposed to get $50,000 a year for every year they spend in prison wrongfully. But there's a prosecutor that sits on the board that decides those cases, and so he says no on most of them. And so, there's a lot of uphill battles in this work, and we're just going to keep fighting. So I appreciate that you're going out to fight too. That's awesome.
Could I add
Very
quickly to
close.
that?
Yes, very cool.
And I'll add really quickly just that while people with criminal records are not a protected class in most instances, there's such a strong nexus with racial discrimination because of how we over-police, over-convict, and over-sentence people of color in this country. And so under Title VII, now more and more under the Fair Housing Act, there is litigation happening on behalf of people with records because of these bans and exclusions, which we, again, truly believe do not help keep anyone safer. if folks are coming out jobless, homeless, and undereducated. So we're really hoping on two sides, one, to educate employers, landlords, and educational institutions about why they should be inclusive of this community, but also working with folks like you to find bad actors and make sure they know actually the law might have you on the hook because of the disparate impact on people of color.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for you guys' time today. A round of applause for our lovely panelists.